Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first ever episode of the In Off the Post podcast. I'm Daniel Bevan. I'm one of your hosts. I'm here with the other two as well, Ross Dawson.
Hello.
And Liam Thomas.
What's up?
Because this is the first episode, we're going to talk a little bit about ourselves, so bear with us. But I am, we all are, journalism students, in the second year at University of South Wales. I'm a Cardiff fan for my sins, football blogger. I've been one since I was 16. I'm 19 now. And I've got other interests in journalism, kind of want to go into probably broadcast or print. And before we move on, should say check out the South Wales Disclosure. We're all contributors and editors to that as well, which is an independent student-run newspaper. So, Ross?
Yeah, my name's Ross. I'm a Manchester United fan. I'd say for my sins, but you know, a lot of people are Manchester United fans.
From where you're from, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I write some blogs, but most of my opinions on football will be shared on my Twitter at @rdaws_, RDAWS_. And sports writer last year on the South Wales Disclosure. You can follow us at SW Disclosure on Twitter and Instagram. And yeah.
I'm Liam. I'm an Arsenal supporter for all you Gunners out there. I do football as well as ice hockey. We'll be covering a variety of topics on this show, including the Premier League, internationals, and generally just the rest of the world. I think we're starting off today with a Premier League result roundup.
Yep, that's right. So Saturday's results for the 30th of September. Bournemouth and Leicester drawing 0-0. Stoke winning at home against Southampton 2-1. West Brom and Watford drawing 2-2. West Ham beating Swansea City at home 1-0. Spurs thrashing Huddersfield 4-0 away. Manchester United getting another 4-0 win.
Surprise, surprise.
Another 4-0 win against Crystal Palace
like
at
a
home.
bingo show with Man United.
Man City beating Chelsea at home 1-0. Oh, sorry. They beat Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, so Chelsea were at home. Sunday's results: Newcastle 1, Liverpool 1, Everton losing 1-0 to Burnley at home, and Arsenal winning at home 2-0 to Brighton. So this leads us into our first topic of discussion: title predictions. We know there's two main horses in this race, but
since this is the first show, it kind of needed to start off with a bit of a heavy topic, didn't we? I think for me it's one name only. It's Man City.
Liam?
I would have to go for City as well for now.
See, as a United fan, it's hard for me to put my bias to the side, because we haven't really faced any worthy opponents yet so far this season, other than Everton, who we beat, I think 4-0. It was 4-0, wasn't it?
Yeah, but yeah. I mean, Everton. They're not doing exactly
We'll get to that later in the show.
Surprisingly, Man City drew. It was Everton who Man City drew against.
Ooh.
Oh, that's a shout, actually. I forgot about that.
So
but
I did have to have a look.
But I think, for me, Man City are just the more rounded team. They've got goals everywhere. So even though on the top goal scorers chart, you're not seeing Jesus or Aguero or De Bruyne, you're seeing they've got goals scattered. I mean, Fabian Delph scored a goal 2 weeks ago. They just seem to be oozing attacking prowess. They don't seem to defend, but when they have to, they definitely come up clutch.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's hard for me to be confident with United at the moment, because I think the last 3 seasons we've started out strong and then it's obviously filtered out. I think the big test will be this Saturday against Liverpool. Probably, they are our toughest competition in the league so far, so we'll be able to put our
They've been underperforming themselves, haven't they?
They have, yeah. But they have. It will be away. The game is at Anfield, so I think that if we can knock away Liverpool, then, well, we're already in the conversation, but I think this will be getting serious. But just to get it clear, at the moment, I do think Man City are going to win the league, just because they've got goals coming from every area. Kevin De Bruyne is probably, he's my best player in the league.
For sure.
We've got Aguero up front, even though he's out injured.
It's even 2 or 3 of the games they've played where they've even had a player sent off and they've still managed to outscore the opposition team, which just shows
It's just the fact that Raheem Sterling's already got 5 goals this season.
I mean, as an Arsenal fan, obviously he was linked with us with the Sanchez deal, and sort of Arsenal fans laughed at that. I mean, now
you'd probably take him, wouldn't you?
Exactly, I know.
Especially with the performance that Arsenal had. I think this is probably a good segue into talking about Arsenal versus Brighton. You can't say that Arsenal shouldn't have won, or didn't deserve it. They fully did. But Sanchez had an awful game. He just didn't play well.
Well, I mean, it's hard for a player to play well when he doesn't want to be there. I mean,
yeah, that's a fair point. Fair point. I mean,
he was quite vocal. Well, not vocal in a sense, but quite the opposite. He wasn't vocal about wanting to stay. So I can't really blame him, to be honest.
But by that logic, it means Ozil didn't want to play there from the moment he signed.
I'm just looking at the stats now for goals and assists in the league so far. Both lists are heavily dominated by the Manchester clubs. I'd say goals, Romelu Lukaku, 7 goals. He's top of the Golden Boot table at the moment. Then you've got Sergio Aguero with 6 goals, Raheem Sterling with 5, and Gabriel Jesus with 4. So Man City scoring a lot of goals from different areas of the pitch. And even when you go into assists, David Silva's top of that chart as well. He's got 6 assists so far in the league. And you've got Aguero on 3 assists and De Bruyne on 3 as well.
So correct me if I'm wrong, because you're looking at the stats, but does that mean that Aguero has been contributed to the most number of goals this season?
It looks that way. I'll have to work it out now. He's got 9 contributions to goals, so unless Lukaku's got 2 assists, which I know for a fact he has 1, but it's whether he has 2. Let me just get on that now.
Whilst you're doing that, we should probably mention, the players that Man City have got in their squad. So I mentioned Fabian Delph already, but, Mendy isn't going to be out for 9 months like people were saying. He's only going to be out for 2. So when he comes back, I thought he was fantastic. On the right, you've got Danilo and Kyle Walker, who I think are both fantastic players. Yeah, it seems like if their first team player gets injured, they've always got someone who's worthy coming in. I can't really say that about United because you're playing Ashley Young at left back.
I think that's more to do with the left back crisis at United. In the summer transfer window, the one thing I said, the one area that we need to strengthen after buying Matic and Lukaku and Lindelof, who hasn't played a lot, if I'm being completely honest, because he's been quite poor. But I did think we needed to address the left back situation. When rumours came out about Danny Rose being linked to United, that was a deal that I was quite looking forward to, because Danny Rose was a big contributor to Spurs' defensive success last season. Well, if you can see that Walker got himself a £50 million transfer to Man City on the back of that, I think Danny Rose could have easily gone for 45 plus. Yeah. He's a bit younger than Walker, and I think he could have really fit into a team. I was a huge fan of Luke Shaw, though.
I was going to say, is he just completely out of the picture now?
I think so, just because his form has been so poor. He's been playing in like the lower teams, like the under-23s and the second team and stuff like that. And from what I hear, he's put in some poor performances in those games as well.
Well, certainly at a club like Manchester United, when you're out for an injury for so long, it's so hard to get back into the team.
It's so frustrating as well, because his form before that leg break was so good.
He did really have that period where you thought, all right, he's finally fulfilling what he promised, essentially. Because at Southampton, he was 19, he was by far and away their best player. He was so good, and he seemed so humble and down to earth. You were like, this kid's going to go far.
And even in the game that he broke his leg, the run he made, like, that led to the challenge that broke his leg, it was such a good run for left back as well.
You're right, yeah.
I thought he was going to score. I thought he was in on goal, but then he just got crunched, and I was like, oh damn, that's a free kick. And then it turned out he snapped his leg. I was just so gutted, but he was one of my favourite players at United around that time, so I was really gutted to see him get that injury.
Yeah, so we're all in agreement, it's Man City.
It's Man
for
City.
now. But if it's not Man City...
United, I think United.
Liam?
Yeah, I don't see why.
Because I think Liverpool just don't have the squad to do it this year.
Liverpool don't have the right balance.
Liverpool don't have the squad to do it. Arsenal, they need to sort their own, Arsenal, they need to sort their own problems out.
Yeah, club problems before squad.
Spurs need some wins at Wembley first to get the confidence rolling.
It's also depth. Depth is their problem.
That's what I was going to lead on to Chelsea's argument, because Chelsea, I don't think, have the depth in areas that they needed they need it the most.
The problem with Spurs is the argument with them was always experience, was saying that they've never challenged at the top. They don't know how to when it gets the going gets tough. But they had last season to do it, and if they certainly can't this season, then there is no reason why the rumours of Harry Kane leaving can go into fruition.
I think they're building themselves as a team, much like Dortmund have been in the last couple of years, where they've had a really young squad and they're sort of building the team there. But
I think that's a fair comparison. Then you look at Dortmund now, and they've got still some of the best young players in Europe, but this season they've started off really well. That's probably more down to just Bayern not doing well. But last season was a really big, disappointing season for them. They only just got into the European places.
But if you look at the breakout stars of last season, you've got Christian Pulisic, you've got Ousmane Dembele, you've
Quality
got
player.
two of the most.
If these players were that talented, much like Monaco's young team, they were completely raided in the transfer window. You haven't seen anyone apart from Kyle Walker. No other teams have. It's not even been rumoured in the papers for anyone going for, apart from obviously Danny Rose as well.
I think that has been. I mean, there was Tony Alderweireld, who there was rumours that possibly he was unhappy. Because bear in mind, they've got a very strict wage structure. So there's no player at Spurs at the moment earning more than $100,000 a week. That's still a lot of money. But, you look at...
For a top 5 club.
For a top 5 club, that's nothing.
Enough. That's nothing to... If you want to try and keep your star players at the club, that's not gonna do it.
Toby Alderweireld, for me, other than probably Van Dijk, was the best ball-playing centre-back in the league, and he's on $40,000 a week.
I don't know what about John Stones as the best ball-playing centre-back
last season. Would you have said that last season? No. This season he's been really good, and he scored 2 goals at one game. I forget which one. I was like, what's going on with John Stones? He's playing striker. I remember Gareth Southgate said that he wanted to play him in midfield at one point and got absolutely trounced for it.
But no, in terms of going back to the title debate, I think Chelsea haven't got the depth out wide, because you saw last season when they played United, they had, I think it was Victor Moses sent off in like the first couple of minutes. Yeah, and they absolutely crumbled after that because they had to put Azpilicueta out wide. So I think Alexandra would have been such a good signing for them if they managed to get him from Juventus.
Oh yeah, for sure. He's a great player.
He would have suited their playstyle down to the ground, or even like Kolasinac or something like that. Some like a really good like all-round fullback that they need.
And don't forget, obviously they were sort of the team that drove the 3/5 at the back, and now many teams have adopted it. It's nothing new,
Arsenal,
and teams know how to play
Spurs,
against it.
Sometimes United,
Man City as well. Try
Man City,
it. I think the one thing that we've learned is the only thing that can properly counter a 5 at the back formation is 5 at the back formation, because the problem is that there's so much space in that in the positions, you just don't know what to run into unless you're playing 5 at the back and you bring the wingers forward. And it's a great formation, and I've credit Conte, whatever, for
both of them.
Well, yeah. I mean, fully for making it like mainstream, I guess you could say. But I wouldn't want to see
Steve Bruce.
Every
he didn't
team
make
playing.
it mainstream at all. Let's put it that way.
I think his problem was playing what's his name, Mohamed El Mohammadi on the right instead of someone like Victor Moses.
Potentially his own son. Let's not forget that.
Alex Bruce.
Okay, so to wrap this section off, title predictions: City or United. I think it's City all round so far.
And if it isn't City, then it is Man United. I think for everyone.
Well,
that was easy.
The 9th of December when they play each other will definitely be a
9th of December, or even
down.
When we get into like November, see how the table starts off, because I'm not too we'll wait until more games have been played and seeing what the table's like.
Looking at the table now, and they are equal on points. Man City are only above them on one goal
difference. Yeah.
And when you think, like, we're thinking about all these goals that Man City have been scoring, it's just constant 4-0s from United. That's what's really kept them, is the 4-0s.
Well, yeah, we've played 7 goals and we've scored, I think, 21 goals in 6 games or something like that.
That's crazy.
And United posted on their Facebook earlier, so we're in the best goal-scoring form that we have been in the last couple of seasons, really.
And obviously one of the teams you beat is, I think, on to our next topic, which is Everton, who on the opposing end of, I believe it was a 4-0.
This just rings of what happened with Spurs when they sold Gareth Bale.
Deja vu.
It is really deja vu, because when Spurs just sold Gareth Bale, brought in all those players. I think the only 2 players that are left out of that spending spree are Eriksen and Lamella, and nobody's really thinking Lamella's a good player. So there's only one player that really came good out of that. So you look at the spending spree that Everton went on.
142 million.
Are you going to be seeing Sandro there in a few years? I mean, Rooney would have retired by then, almost certainly. But, you know, are you going to be seeing Sigurdsson there in a few years' time? Probably not.
Well, I mean, they made the mistake of, like you said, with Tottenham, you sell such a player of that stature, you've got to try and replace him somehow.
And they didn't, did they?
And much like
but looking back on it, that Sandro deal, what did they get him for? 7 mil?
It was a good deal.
It was
and
a good
he's
deal
21.
Because he scored quite a lot of goals in his appearances last year.
I'm pretty sure he scored the most number of goals for a player under the age of 21 in La Liga.
That was a good signing, but they're just not playing him.
He's also not he's not a like for like for Lukaku.
No.
But then again, there's no reason for a team not to buy the number of players that Tottenham and the number of players that Everton have and it not work. So why do you think that is? I mean, obviously they have to gel with each other, which takes a while. But
which is why you do your business early and not ride out that. Like what Everton did was they thought the longer this goes on, the more money we can get for him. United weren't playing about, so they just slapped whatever they were asking for. And I completely agree with Mourinho when he says that all of the signings that he made were before the Neymar deal. And if he had made them after, he probably would have been talking about spending twice the price for every single one, because that deal did change everything.
It did.
Especially with Lukaku. Lukaku could have gone easily for 100 million plus
following
the
you
the
look
Neymar
at the
deal.
Jesus deal that Manchester City got, and that looks like an absolute steal now.
20 mil for him.
20 million. I mean, I know he hasn't scored many goals or racked up many points, but the energy you get from him up front, just the others around him can benefit.
I read something like over this last 15 shots on target, he scored 12 goals or something stupid like that. And it's just mirroring Iheanacho, who I thought was a great player. I feel a bit sorry for him because he's stuck in Leicester at the moment, not getting a game over, Shinji Okazaki.
But yeah, going back onto Everton, they lost on the weekend 1-0 at home to Burnley.
Shocking.
Great goal.
It was a really good goal.
Well worked.
But it's really poor on Everton's part. I don't know what Ronald Koeman was doing with that starting 11, because
I think just from pressure he's had to make changes.
Niasse had a good game last week. He scored 2 goals.
Yeah.
And I think, but still, to bench a lot of your key players, like Rooney can. Granted, he's not in the best form of his career, but he does still bring something to a team. And I think if you're making a signing like Sandro, he has to start up front. And even Tom Davis on the bench. I know that probably doesn't suit their philosophy right now because they've got Idrissa Gueye playing in midfield with Schneiderlin, who started, obviously. But I do think they need to sort out their starting 11 first.
But just playing a 4-4-2 is so unlike Ronald Koeman. I've always seen him play 4-3-2-1 or 4-2-3-1.
Like
the modern game doesn't.
Even 4-3-3.
The modern game doesn't lend itself to 4-4-2 anymore.
Not
No, it
when
doesn't.
you're coming up against 5 at the back.
It worked for Leicester 2 seasons ago, but still.
But that's because nobody really know what to expect from Leicester. I think the main reason they did well was because they started off really well and the momentum just carried them forward. And it was the same with the Champions League. But as much as, Everton did play awfully, because they did, you've got to give all the credit in the world to Sean Dyche and Burnley. He got it spot on. He put in the perfect team. They scored a lovely goal. People just kind of think that they just hoof it around, but it isn't really the case, especially when Sam Vokes is playing. For some reason, they like to pass it to him, to his feet. Don't know why. I just think that Burnley, they're above Liverpool now. They're in, sixth place. Great form. They're going to be a mid-table team if they carry on the way they are. Their away form has been appalling last season. I think they only got 2 points last season away from home, and what kept them up was their home form. Well, now they've taken points off Everton and Liverpool and Spurs and Chelsea, all away from home.
I distinctly remember that 0-0 United had away to Burnley.
Dead game.
The goalkeeper just had a madness. What was it?
Tom Heaton.
Tom Heaton had an absolute madness that game, and it was just ridiculous how we didn't win.
So far there seems to be a transition of the middle. Well, last year's in this case, middle table teams sort of
Yeah.
performing less so, and the newer teams, and some of the ones from last
Pulis
year,
and
including
West Brom.
Burnley.
Everton have too many
are
central players
replacing
as
them.
well. When you think you're playing a 4-4-2 and you have attacking midfielders in your team like Rooney, Ross Barkley, Sigurdsson, who's playing out on the left, I just
He
don't,
has
I just
played
don't
there
get it.
in the past. I don't think he's got the pace to, especially not in a Ronald Koeman kind of system where they are reliant on counter-attack, and that was the way that
And they got
they
Klaassen
played.
as well from Ajax that they bought recently. I
yeah.
thought that was a good sign.
And Tom Davis, and even I think Calvert-Lewin can play there.
Maybe if they change the 4-4-2 around so it looks sort of more like a diamond or
It's a
something
dangerous
like
time
that,
to
because
be changing things up, as you saw. On the
He's
weekend.
been given the kiss of death by the board, saying they fully back him, so he's got 2 weeks.
Yes, at max.
But I think a good segue from this is who's going to get sacked first: Ronald Koeman, Slaven Bilic, or Paul Clement.
it's got to be Bilic for me.
You think Bilic is going to go first?
West Ham have been too poor this season for the money that they've put in. That on the weekend when he brought off Hernandez, the crowd's reaction really said it all, didn't it?
Yeah, but then the 2 players he brought on in that substitution linked up for the goal. So tactically he got it right, but then for fans that's not always good enough, especially for West Ham fans who like to think that they know everything.
Like 2 seasons ago, I was pipping West Ham to be probably a top 7 team.
Yeah.
When Payet was like banging them in from 20 yards every game and stuff like that, but he obviously went off to Marseille. I really thought West Ham had a good side and they could have got somewhere, but for me, it just hasn't been good enough. Slaven Bilic has had a mess. I don't think it's all his fault necessarily, the West Ham's form. I do think it's the London Stadium has an element to do with that. I haven't been myself. I've seen it in person, but from what I hear, it's such a poor ground to go watch a football game in.
I don't know why it was so sought after. There were so many clubs going after it. I think
Many
even
bids
Tottenham
were put
looked
in.
after
Yes,
it,
indeed.
or looked at it, and it's so far away from the pitch. The space between the seats is so far. There's no way you can build an atmosphere. Wembley's bad enough. The atmosphere in Wembley is appalling.
I heard there was rumours that they were actually playing crowd noises through the speakers in
Is that
Wembley
true?
at one point. I don't know. I'd love to know.
I would love for that to be true, because that seems like the most West Ham thing ever. It's so tin pot.
So what do you guys think? Who's the next manager to get the sack?
I don't think it will be, but their fans seem to think it will be Paul Clement. Swansea fans they're gunning for blood. They really want him to go. And I can't understand why. It's so confusing to me because, yeah, sure, they're not doing well, right? They're in the relegation zone at the moment, 18th, but it's only 7 games into the season. Who would you rather have, Paul Clement or Bob Bradley? And he didn't last very long. I think it was 11 games.
It's a pick of the worst bunch at the moment for Swansea at the moment.
It's awful because I was driving home from the Cardiff game on the weekend. We'll get to that a bit later. And I was listening to Call Rob Phillips on BBC Radio Wales, and they had a phone in from a bloke who had been to the game. He was driving down the M4, and he was calling for everything. He wanted the board gone. He wanted the manager gone. He wanted half the players stripped away. I can't understand that. Sure, it's an annoying loss, but that surely does not warrant the kind of reaction that the fans were giving. Surely not.
I think Swansea fans are just, their expectations are a little bit too high, because their first season in the Prem, I don't know if it was their first season in the Prem, the season a couple of years ago with Michu, when they were like in the top 7 or something like that, a couple of months into
It might
the
have been the
season.
second season.
Yeah. I think they adjusted them. Well, they've sort of sat themselves on those expectations, and the Renato Sanchez deal that I'm sure we all have our opinions on. We thought it was a great signing, 8 million on a loan, on a 1-year loan.
I actually didn't think it was that good of a signing.
I thought it was good for Swansea because he was such a big prospect after Euro 2016 that I thought having that name come to Swansea. Well, I saw a kid walking through Cardiff the other day with a Renato Sanchez jersey on.
Yeah, that is sad.
That's the sort of impact that he's
That's
had.
dangerous. That
I
is
can't-
walking to Cardiff for that.
I don't want to say, I hate to say I told you so, because I do. But I said on Twitter when they signed him, he's going to join, and if he starts his first game, I forget which game it was, It was Newcastle, that's right. If he starts on that game, the attitude to him will be very different because he's not match fit, and he's still not match fit even 3 games in. That was his problem, was that he went and played in the Euros with Portugal, and he wasn't playing 90 minutes. He was coming on in the 70th minute and just running at tired defences. And he was doing a good job at that. He genuinely was. And he did it against Wales. But I just didn't think that he would start a game and run it the way that Swansea fans were expecting him to. That new guy that Newcastle signed, Moreno, I think from Dortmund on loan, he played so much better than him. He made him look like a genuine amateur that game.
What do you think, Liam? Who's going to be the first manager to get the sack this year?
Well, I said it earlier, if Bilic hadn't won that game on the weekend, then I think there'd definitely been some calls for his head.
True.
Again,
sure.
I mean, Swansea didn't replace, I don't think they were ever going to replace the players that they lost. So for them...
Getting Boney back from
Boney, I'm a big fan of Boney.
It was a good deal, yeah, because his form for Swansea in his last season, or half a season for them, he was
Especially
really good for them.
Playing at Stoke where he was before. But they lost Llorente as well, didn't they, Swansea?
Yeah.
They got a good deal out of that. He's 32 and 12 million for him.
Still sort of another wasteful signing, though.
Yeah, they didn't. I don't think they really replaced him. I know you could say Boney does, but Boney was never that. Although he's strong, he wasn't the physical prowess. He was always scoring goals with his feet, not his head.
Have they still got that Gomes guy, Swansea?
Which one?
The French Gomes.
Oh no, he left. I think a year ago.
Panther Gomes.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Classic
think he went to Lyon.
He done some bits against big teams when he was at Swansea as well, I thought.
Kind of going on what you said earlier about Swansea fans thinking that they're better than they are. That sounds much worse, but you know what I mean. Like
coming from a Cardiff fan.
Coming from a Cardiff fan. The thing is, I mean this in a cynical way, but I always want a Welsh team in the Premier League, whether it's Swansea or whether it's Cardiff.
Yeah.
Either way.
Or Newport County.
Newport, the way they're going at the moment, God. No, but fully, I think that if Swansea wanted to be the club that they are, they certainly have the money to do it. They're just not investing it.
I think it's hard for them to go from the philosophy they had under Brendan Rodgers to see a team just completely deconstructed to what it is now with no real philosophy.
If you're a player though signing for Swansea, there's no way you're thinking, right, I'm going to go there and I'm going to become a top 4 player with them. You're always thinking, I'm going to go there and in 3 years' time I'm going to be in a top 4 club, or I'm going to be at somewhere in Europe, because that's what Boney did, that's what Sigurdsson did, that's what Gomes did, that's what Michu did. He, obviously it fell off a little bit because of his injury that kind of basically retired him.
That's what Ashley Williams has done.
Ashley Williams, and he was with them for a solid 8 years.
He was a very...
Joe Allen?
Yeah, Joe Allen as well, yeah, of course. Didn't work out for him as much, but still.
I mean, he's still at a bigger club than Swansea, though.
He's in the form of his career.
I'm a big fan of Joe Allen.
I'm a big fan of Joe Allen as well, yeah. I think he's quality.
Yeah.
They seem like they've got another year of fighting to do, though, along with West Ham.
Yeah. The thing is, West Ham historically are a big club, and they were always that club that, didn't quite have a big enough stadium, maybe didn't have quite the bigger names, but always did well. And they bounced up and down over the years, I know, but they weren't being called Tin Pot until they had this new stadium, until they thought that they were signing Michy Batshuayi and ended up
Lacazette
and ended up with Simone Zaza on loan. The
infamous penalty taker.
I mean, they brought Hernandez in now. If he gets in goal scoring form and he carries West Ham to, I'd say, top 10 finish, probably about 8th, 7th, I think would be a successful season for West Ham at the moment, given the situation. I think that could attract bigger names, because West Ham can attract the names. It's just the form that they've been in has been shocking, because they brought Payet and he was a big player in France, and you saw what he did for West Ham, and he just thought that something in the club, either it's the management or something with the form, he wanted to get out of there because he wanted better than that. He wanted to win, which I think
it's his personality. I honestly think that he could have stayed at West Ham, and he wanted to potentially, but he knew that he could get more money at Marseille. Is it?
Well, he used the excuse of his family in the end for the move.
That's
blaming
rubbish.
Well, exactly, which probably shows you that maybe he didn't want to stay there.
Rubbish. No footballer, especially one like him, where, you know, France and the UK aren't that far away, he could definitely see his family.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a nice house West Ham could have put them in anyway.
I'm sure, and he could have been
It's
in the
not
best
hard.
schools in the country. It's rubbish. Either way, I think
So, moving on to the other side of London, we talk about Spurs and specifically
My favourite man.
the boy Harry Kane.
Oh,
So,
wow.
Spurs won 4-0 on the weekend against Huddersfield. Harry Kane got 2 of those goals, the second of which was a lovely 25-yard screamer killing on his left
Beautifully played,
foot.
love him.
So, the debate we're talking about today is Harry Kane world class?
This is obviously going on after what Thierry Henry said when he had the list of the Premier League strikers, and he chose Aguero as anyone who could potentially be world class.
Yeah, he didn't. That's
didn't
the thing.
even
Didn't even
mention-
call him world class.
Didn't even yeah, exactly. So
That's the thing. Yeah. Now, I think he is. I think it's all. This is an argument over a definition of words, because what is world class? To me, world class is somebody who could go into literally any team in Europe and do a job.
I was literally going to say the same thing.
And
To me, world class is just any person that can walk into any team, probably bar like Real Madrid and Barcelona, and
But even
easily
if he
get
wasn't
into the starting
starting,
11.
if he wasn't starting for Madrid, you know, he probably wouldn't start. I would say he's better than Benzema. He's probably not better than Suarez.
No,
But
no,
if
he's in better form than Suarez.
But if you took Suarez out and put Harry Kane in, would you see much of a difference? I don't think you would.
I don't know, because obviously Harry Kane's always played with this great support system behind him, with the the right backs they play, especially with Eriksen behind him. I don't know, if I was to play devil's advocate, I would question whether he possesses the sort of individual talent, aside from a target man basis, to do a job in another team.
I wouldn't say he's only a target man though. You look at the goal he scored against Dortmund. I mean, we were kind of ripping on the goalkeeper for that, because beating his near post twice in 20 minutes by the same
match.
player. But he took the ball from his almost his own half. Yeah, you could argue he fouled the man, but if it wasn't a foul, then it was a great goal. And he wasn't just lumped to. He did show a bit of pace.
Well, we know he can score. He's proven that. He can
Yeah.
hold the ball up.
Well, he's the best finisher in Europe at the moment, for sure.
It's just, I think it's the whole stigma with target men, and it's hard to rank them as world class because they lack that sort of flair, the sort of skills you'd see on someone like Neymar, who was sort of brushed with world class, as soon as he arrived at Barcelona. So I think it is hard for that role, that type of striker, to reach that level.
Well, Lewandowski did it.
Yeah, you can't say that Lewandowski really had that flair. And in a
You
way,
can't- you
Suarez didn't either, even though he's South American, and there's kind of a thing where you think that you expect South Americans to do really, really well in terms of step-overs and flair and all that. Suarez was just a pain in the box, and he just did really, really well.
Also, the goals Suarez scored, the variety. I mean, I know we saw Kane score from outside the box, but he is typically a sort of inside the box finisher.
Yeah. I once saw Suarez score a header from outside the box against Cardiff. I will never forget that.
Oh, that one goal he scored against Norwich as well. Or that.
Well,
I think
he
Yeah,
scored
yeah,
two
Norwich.
hat-tricks against
Norwich,
them,
yeah.
and any one of those goals.
But
you
he
could
scored one of
choose.
them from a halfway line.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't think this is an argument about whether Suarez is world class or not. We all think he is. I think Harry Kane it definitely is, and if he wasn't last season, then he is now. I know this whole thing about he's got to be able to score in August, but that's just coincidence. You can't say that that's a point against him, because he's come and scored I think 13 goals this month.
Well, do you think that maybe the fact he isn't called world class reflects on the players around him? Do you reckon if he had more players to his level, then maybe he would be, like you mentioned, Lewandowski? Look who Lewandowski's had play
I
around
think
him.
if he was in a better squad, he would for sure be called world class. So
If
I won't be surprised if people in a couple of seasons, if Lukaku continues the form that he's on at the moment, I think a lot of people will call him world class just because he's surrounded by a team that is world class. I think it's very hard to be a
Yeah.
world class player in
In a team that isn't winning.
In a team that isn't winning anything, or
if Harry Kane played for United and was doing exactly the same things that he's doing at Spurs, and you dared to not call him world class, I would think you'd be crucified on every platform. You know.
So yeah, I think that's pretty much the argument. Well, my point is, at the moment, I don't think Harry Kane is world class, purely for the reasons that we just said.
Yeah.
Because I think if he goes, it's one thing being a striker in the Premier League who's in good form, but it's like if you go to that next level and you also perform to that level as well, then I think he would become world class. I think the only way that Harry Kane can truly become one of the top 5 or top 7 strikers in the world is if he makes a big move to a big club, because that for me is what put Luis Suarez above the rest, is that the fact that he went from that last season with Sturridge as well, they formed like the best striking partnership in the league, hands down. And I think the fact that he went from Liverpool, he took to being title contenders in the Premier League, they just let it, pardon the pun, let it slip.
I also believe that when Suarez was in the league, he was clearly the best striker.
He was, yeah.
Whilst with Harry Kane, there's people matching him with, maybe not last year when he did finish with the Golden Boot, but even now people are still matching him with his goals. He's
the tied second highest goal scorer at the moment this season. He's tied with Sergio Aguero and Alvaro Morata. The only person that's outscored him is Lukaku.
Bear in mind that he scored all of those goals in a month. And I'm probably working against my own point because I do think he is world class, but the only reason he got the Golden Boot last year was because he scored 7 goals in the last 2 games.
Yeah.
But I think he's world class because, well, the reasons I stated, that because he would do a job in any team. You could put him in, Real Madrid's team or Bayern Munich's team or Barcelona's team and still score what he's scoring now.
The big test for me with Harry Kane is at the end of the season, the World Cup.
The internationals, indeed.
The World Cup and internationals, because if he can perform on that level on an big international scale, I think I won't hesitate to call him world class.
Well, saying that though,
if he's in the top 3 goal scorers in the World Cup at the end of this season, he is world class to me.
Okay, I'll accept that, but Alan Shearer didn't really do well at England level. There were a lot of people calling for him to be dropped after, I think it was the 96 Euros, I want to say, because he went through a period of 2 years where he didn't score an international goal, but he was banging in 20 a season in the Premier League. So there was definitely a gap there.
Imagine what he could have achieved if he did go to a Man United or an Arsenal at the end of the millennium or something like that.
I mean, he turned down Man United, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, but I think that if Harry Kane spends his entire career, he will end up scoring 300 goals. He won't just pass Alan Shearer's record. He will.
He has to stay in this league.
He will massively surpass it.
He has to stay in this league. It would be great for English football if he stays in this league.
Yeah. I want to see him in the Premier League.
Even though I think he could easily walk into Real Madrid, I think.
He's just not a European player, though, is he?
No, again.
He's the kind of player that, just English players in general, people in Europe
so
just don't like them.
As a striker.
The only player that sort of managed to do it, players, I guess, is probably Gaza and Lineker, I'd say, that took English football to a European level.
Of course, but then they were different kinds of players, weren't they? Yeah. I don't mean individually. I mean like in terms of compared to their contemporaries, because Alan Shearer was a poacher, but in when the time when Gary Lineker was playing, a poacher was something that in Barcelona needed. They wanted a poacher. They didn't want someone to be doing step overs all the time.
It's an unappreciated art being a poacher
striker. For sure.
But yeah.
I mean, should we talk about Huddersfield a little bit, because I know they got trounced today, and I kind of feel I'm obliged to mention this. Their fans clapping Spurs fans at the end of the game. I thought that was so cringy.
I agree.
Well, they got to watch Harry Kane score goals, despite their manager saying he wasn't going to do anything to stop him. So,
yeah, he did, didn't he? He said that he didn't change his tactics up for Harry Kane.
I think he knew at that moment he definitely messed up.
Yeah, I I think like respect in football is something that you don't always see, but football is about rivalry, down to its kind of purest form. So at the end of the game, when you're just watching a team beat you 3-0 or 4-0 or 5-0, and then you're going, you know what, they deserved it. Well done, lads, in clapping them.
Very ambitious.
It's not ambitious.
No,
it's not.
So just to round off this section, Liam, is Harry Kane world class?
I don't believe he is yet. No.
I'm gonna have to agree with Liam.
I think he is. I do think he is.
Interesting. So moving on from the Premier League, but staying in the English leagues, we take it to the Championship. We'll give this to you, Bev, because you know way more than us.
Thank you.
Cardiff City, in great form, obviously. Neil Warnock effect. Is promotion on the cards for Cardiff this year, Dan?
Yes. Yeah, it is. We started off with a couple wins, maybe not so convincing. The first game of the season was against Burton, 1-0 win. You know, the Hall had to score in the 85th minute, I want to say, to win it for us. I don't think many people then were saying, oh, promotion, unless it was sarcasm. But I said then, coming into the first international break, we were still top, and I think we were still unbeaten then. It's not about the first international break, it's about the second international break. If we're still top or still unbeaten by that time, then absolutely, promotion is worth it. I think there was some stat that 6 of the last 7 teams who have been top after the first international break hadn't been promoted. So it was almost destined for us not to be if that was the case. On the weekend we drew to Derby, a very boring game. I'll give full credit to Derby for that one though. They turned up wanting a point, they got it, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I fully expect Cardiff to be doing that several times this season. But if you know, going back to the question, is promotion realistic? I think now it is.
So obviously with the Championship they have the playoffs. So I think is it the top 8 or the top 7 teams?
6.
6. Okay, so I was completely wrong. So the top, if you're in the top 6, you've got an opportunity to get promotion.
So it's the first 2 that go up automatically,
yeah.
and then the following, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and 6th play each other for the playoffs, and then one of those teams goes up.
So what position do you think Cardiff are going to finish in? Do you think they're going to secure promotion, or do you think they're going to go to the playoffs?
I still think the playoffs is something that Cardiff fans need to be thinking about, because we beat Leeds 3-1, and then the Leeds then went on, lost to Sheffield Wednesday. Yeah, it was Wednesday, 3-0 on the next week. But their team is unbelievable. They're going to be going and turning over teams by a lot, and I fully expect Leeds to be up there by the end of the season. Middlesbrough as well, they spent a lot of money. They've got Gary Monk in, also from Leeds. I just think that there's so much firepower in the league that there is at least 2 teams better than Cardiff in the league. So yeah, I do think playoffs needs to be the realistic ambition, but we can gun for automatic. I think that needs to be the player's aim, but then the fans' aim needs to be playoffs.
What's going to be your top 6 this year in the Championship?
Oh, such a good question. I'm going to have to look at the table now, because I think the bookies, there was a table that came out before the season started of the average, what the bookies thought was going to be their top 6. And right now, 5 of the top 7 teams were made up the 5 bottom teams of what they thought were going to go down.
I remember reading the 442 season preview thing for the Championship. Cardiff in 17th, was it?
Yes,
It was. I'll take this off your hands. I was the writer for that.
Yeah. I saw your prediction at 6th, and I thought, okay.
I thought 6th at the time was realistic.
I agreed with 6th, if I'm honest, but they got that one wrong, didn't they?
So what's changed from the start of the season then for you to now be thinking that you will definitely get promoted?
Well, we've been winning. I think there was uncertainty. Neil Warnock said before the transfer window opened that he wanted 7 signings, and we ended up getting 10. But a lot of them were kind of unknown. If you had told me that at the start of the season that Nathaniel Mendez-Lang and Neil Etheridge were going to be 2 of our best players come 11 games into the season, I would have thought that you'd be mad. But they have been. Like Neil Etheridge, yeah, he's a bit rusty, but he's for sure been fantastic. And Mendes Lang, I think, has got, I don't know how many goals and assists exactly, but definitely a lot. And at one point, he was the top goal scorer in the championship with 4 goals. Junior Hoylett he's become a new player. Last season, I liked him, but in this season, he's, I think, got the most number of goal contributions of any player in the championship. Zohore hasn't even been playing that well, and we're still where we are, you know. So I would say that Wolves are definitely going to be up there by the end of the season. Bristol City, who are at the moment in 4th, are going to be falling off. I think the same for Sheffield United at 3rd. Neither of them have really got the depth to be staying up as far as they are. Leeds will be up there, Preston won't be. Aston Villa, I think, are going to be a dark horse. I didn't think that at the start of the season when we beat them 3-0 at the stadium, but no, they're climbing up. I think they haven't lost in 6 games.
Steve Bruce effect.
Steve Bruce knows how the championship almost as well as Warnock, for sure. And to kind of like round off the segment, Birmingham, Sunderland, Bolton, all teams I thought would be staying up, and they're doing awful. They're doing really, really poorly. And Burton, I thought were definitely going down. Well, they're clinging on by the skin of their teeth at the moment.
I'm looking at the table now. Reading at 20th. That's a shocker.
I think this. No, not calling you stupid. Don't take this wrong. But they finished 3rd last year.
Yeah. That's purely what I'm judging on. I don't watch championship football
well,
at all.
I don't blame you. Sometimes it's awful. But if you just looked at the table from last year, yeah, you would definitely think that Reading is a shock. But if you watched Reading play, now I know they took points off Cardiff, I think both home and away last year. They weren't good. What they were good at was scoring a goal and then parking the bus. And I was always frustrated watching them, because people were saying, "Oh, this is the kind of promotion-winning form that they would be getting," and then they never really put a string of results together. It was always, "Oh, they won this week, and then they drew the next week, and they lost the week after," and then you did that every single week and ended up finishing 3rd, and it frustrated me. Either way, I think we'll move on for the championship because there isn't really much discussion here, is there?
Right, just so we can round off the section. Top 6 first.
Top 6. I'm gonna say Cardiff in 3rd, going up automatically. I'm gonna say Wolves and Leeds. If they don't, they'll both end up liquidating. They spent so much money.
Who's gonna get 1st and 2nd then out of Leeds and Wolves?
Wolves.
Wolves getting 1st.
Wolves gonna get 1st. You heard it here first, lads.
4th.
Gonna go for Aston Villa.
Are you willing to put on it, Bev, that Wolves will finish?
Should I make a note of?
Yeah, I just thought as soon as
you probably
said
should.
that, I thought put it down.
Probably should. And then I'm gonna say Middlesbrough 5th and Fulham 6th.
Predictions. So 1st
Wolves.
Wolves. 2nd
Leeds.
3rd Cardiff.
Yep.
And then
Impressive.
I've already forgotten what I said.
you said
I think I said Aston Villa, didn't I? Yeah.
Villa 4th.
Yeah, Villa.
Yeah.
Middlesbrough, then Fulham.
Middlesbrough.
Striking amount of former
Fulham.
Premier League
Yeah.
clubs.
And make sure to come back at the end of the season and tell me how wrong I was.
I'll make sure.
Just
I'll have a lot of pleasure in doing that. Okay.
I'm sure you would.
So
But then you think Man United might win the league.
Okay. I said might.
This knows I've entitled worthy teams.
So moving on to our next section, we will go outside of English football, or English and Welsh football. We go to the Carlo Ancelotti sacking for Bayern Munich.
Yeah.
Was it harsh?
Well, I mean, the result against Paris Saint-Germain was their heaviest loss in the Champions League for 21 years, I believe. So if they ever needed a reason to sack him, that was it was right there. And I mean, they only sit 5 points behind Borussia Dortmund, and they've only played, 7 games. So on one hand, I suppose you could say it's harsh, especially because of
they drew on the weekend, didn't they, as well, with the interim coach?
Yeah, I think it was Wolfsburg they drew against. So
I think it was Hertha Berlin, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I know the last match that Ancelotti played with them, they drew against Wolfsburg.
Yeah.
So, I mean, their form wasn't great. But there definitely seem to be problems, especially with the team. There's a rumour in the paper today that the players went behind his back to actually get him sacked. And after the Paris Saint-Germain loss, Robin, after the match, refused to answer a question on whether he backed the manager, and he had this to say. He said, I won't answer this question. The lineup is the coach's business. I will say nothing about it. Every word in this case would be one too many. The important thing is that we stick together now as a team. We need peace. Anyone who now wears his dissatisfaction on the outside does not help the team.
Oh, gosh.
Which I thought was interesting, considering the comment itself was sort of...
I think he's firing shots there at someone like Lewandowski. Now, Lewandowski last season, he kind of came out at the end and said his teammates didn't help him enough to win the Golden Boot. I think it ended up going to Aubameyang.
Yeah, I think it did.
Yeah.
And I found that very interesting, because very rarely a striker will admit that he needs a team around him to score goals. You think a striker's confidence is based off the fact that they think they can score goals themselves. But we've already mentioned that Lewandowski's more of a poacher. So
I still think Lewandowski's at the very least second best striker in the world, if not tied for first with Suarez.
Is Aubameyang not in there at all for you? I think he's got to be.
Not in top 5, no.
Jeez. Not in top 5
Not in top
strikers?
5, no.
Wow,
I
okay.
think that's a debate for another show.
Yeah, that's next week's topic.
That's next
So
week's
was
debate.
it harsh? I mean, obviously I've mentioned the problems they had, and given you the facts about it.
I think it is harsh. I think it definitely is harsh. They're a great team, and Ancelotti's a great manager. His record kind of speaks for himself. He's been, I think, at Madrid, but he's been at PSG, and he's Chelsea. Did really well there. I think he won a title. I would say that if he was gonna be sacked, he deserved more time, because there's no way that 7 games is good enough to judge how you're going to be in the Champions League or whatever. Yeah, there was a big loss to PSG, but PSG are a different beast this season. They're completely different. You can't expect for them to be turned over like that, and not have a response. The names that are being juggled around, I think, it's Thomas Tuchel and Julian Nagelsmann of Hoffenheim.
Yeah, it's definitely ones that are within the league.
Hoffenheim are sitting at 3rd at the moment in the Bundesliga.
I'm a big fan of Nagelsmann.
Equal on points to Bayern Munich, in fact.
He's 29. He's a coach. His playing career was ended when he was younger because of a knee injury. I do feel really sorry for him because of that. But he's turned it right. He's turned his whole career around and become the best young coach in the league, in probably the world, because 29 and being, he led a Hoffenheim team who were almost definitely going to be gunning for, probably relegation after the season they had before, and then led them to Europe. It's just an unbelievable turnaround. It's like a Leicester story. It really is. Thomas Tuchel would be his ultimate revenge on Dortmund. He's a Bavarian-born boy. He's a Bayern Munich fan when he was young. He turned to Dortmund to give himself a career, and then they decided that he was too problematic with the board and with the director of football at Dortmund, so they just let him go. I think it would be fantastic for him to go to Bayern, and then to play the same style of football that he was told was not good enough.
So let's talk about Bayern's business in the transfer window. Obviously, they brought in the likes of Tolisso, and but they let go of Douglas Costa, who, in his debut season for Bayern, was a fantastic player.
Totally,
in Europe
great.
And in the league. He was one of the best wingers in the league that year.
I would say that, because another thing that Lewandowski said about Bayern was that they didn't spend enough money. I think he's chatting rubbish. I really do. They spent a lot of money.
They've brought in James Rodriguez on a 2-year loan from Madrid as well. I think that's a great deal.
It's a great deal, and also they're spending quite a lot. I think it's maybe 5 mil a season, and then got an obligation to buy or an option to buy at the end of it. But Tolisso is the most expensive player in Bundesliga history. He's definitely, and bear in mind that's only 40 million. So there's not exactly a lot of money being floated around. So I think they've recruited well. They've brought on Sula and Rudy, who are both from Hoffenheim, which is why I think Julian Nagelsmann has been brought so heavily into the frame for this, because there's 2 players who he knows very well. And
the transition from Kimmich being centre mid to right back as well, I think, has worked.
It's very Lahm-esque, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
But I love Kimmich. I think he's a fantastic player.
Just the case now whether another manager can take over and rescue the season. Bearing in mind that he did win the Bundesliga with them last year, and Ancelotti. So
And the cup, didn't he, as well?
yeah, I believe so.
But Bayern in recent years, especially like 2 seasons ago, they were considered the best team in the world.
Yeah, they were.
Now, I don't think they're even in the conversation for the top 3, possibly top 4, maybe top 5. But if you think Real Madrid, Barcelona, obviously the top 2, Juventus were in there despite their result against Real Madrid in the Champions League final this year.
Manchester clubs as well.
Manchester clubs, I'd say they're probably slightly below Bayern Munich, despite Munich's recent form.
This isn't really taking much away from United because we're talking about huge clubs, and huge teams. I would just say that Munich's team is ever so slightly better than United's, and therefore they do squeeze into the top 5, and Man City being 4th. But
it's a thing with English clubs becoming top 5 teams in the world, because English football is not at the level that it was probably about 5 years ago.
I think we're going to see, I hope we're going to see, and I like to believe that we are, a bit of a renaissance this season.
Yeah.
With English teams doing well in the Champions League.
Because we all know how competitive and how exciting the English league is to watch.
Yeah,
it's probably the best league in the world to watch. It's just the quality of the football.
Quality of the football, or quality of the teams
on a bigger scale. Because I can't remember the last English. Was it Chelsea who won the?
Yeah, they're the last team to win the Champions
League. Yeah, the last
League.
English team to win the Champions League.
They're also, funny enough, the last English team to win the Europa League. Are Chelsea? Oh no, sorry, United.
United went last
sorry.
year. Come on, don't take that away from me. So, yeah. So just to wrap up this section, I haven't really voiced an opinion, but I do think Ancelotti is a quality manager, and Munich, unless they totally want to change up the club's philosophies, because in recent years they've done the Galactico or Barcelona approach of, well, not necessarily Barcelona, but definitely the Galactico club approach of bringing in a huge name manager, hoping that they do well, offload him in 2 or 3 years, and bring in another world-class huge name. If Bayern Munich want to start building bringing in the Hoffenheim.
What's his name? Julian Nagelsmann, that's it.
Yeah, I can't pronounce it, but yeah, if they do bring him in and he will lead the team for the next 10 or so years, I think that would be great for Bayern as a club.
I had Juppinka's name in my head because he's the chairman. He used to be their manager, and I think he said not too long ago, this was probably before Ancelotti joined, that their goal is to have a manager a bit like Arsene Wenger, maybe, or definitely with more success. But to have someone literally manage a club for 20 years, I think that's what he wants. Whether that's what they'll end up getting, I don't know. And definitely Nagelsmann could do that. I think Tuchel could as well. He's only 40, 50, something like that. But here's a question. Where do you think Ancelotti will end up next?
Ooh, where's looking for managers at the moment?
Well, I know Arseblog themselves said whether he'd fit in at Arsenal. I think he's proven it at Chelsea, so there's no doubt that he won't come to the Premier League.
If Arsenal do decide to offload Wenger at the end of the season,
I don't think they will.
He signed a 2-year contract last summer, didn't he? Yep. But even if the Arsenal form is so bad and it continues to be bad, I think if they bring in Ancelotti, they will turn themselves sort of into one of those clubs that is just invests a huge amount of money into signings and brings that, because as tragic as that is, that's sort of the modern game now. There's not many managers that will stick with a club for 20 years plus. So
I would definitely say that a realistic place for him to be, maybe not with their league position, but with their stature of the club, is Everton. I'd like to see him manage Everton, although the way they're going, they might want Everton and end up with Neil Warnock.
Whether he wants a challenge or not at this point of his career, Everton would certainly be a challenge. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I think he's done well taking projects. I mean, he took Paris Saint-Germain to that next level, and now they're only, I would say, one level. Well, they're only a Champions League away from being that one team.
We forgot PSG in the talk of top teams in the world. They have to be in there above Bayern now.
No, I'm sorry, I don't buy that. Mostly because they're other than their front three, I don't see any of their players as world class.
Thiago Silva.
Not anymore. Surely not.
Verratti.
Maybe Verratti. Maybe Verratti. I'll give you Verratti, but other than that, I don't see anyone else. Like, I do struggle.
In a world 11, I think than some of the front three, it'd be hard.
And
to
you
find
can't
a player
even
who would get into
you
that
can't even
squad.
argue that like Mbappe's world class at this point because he's.
I'm not going to say Mbappe's world class.
No, he isn't. But
his ball for Julian Draxler's goal on the weekend was naughty.
yeah, he was great.
It was a
great.
quality goal.
I just think that the only thing that's going to give them success is their front three, and they've got a good manager in Unai Emery, who he won 3 consecutive Europa Leagues with what's his name, Sevilla, who so he's got European pedigree, but maybe not the kind of pedigree that they want. I think he's going to get sacked if they don't win the Champions League this year, and as soon as they leave, if they get knocked out in the round of 16, he'll be sacked.
Interesting. So
we'll wrap that up.
Yeah, the consensus that Ancelotti's sacking was a bit harsh, which leads us into our next topic. Last night was the Wales Player of the Year, or the FAW Player of the Year Awards. Winning the FAW Special Award was Ian Rush. Supporters Player of the Year was Joe Allen. Women's Player of the Year, Yeovil's Lauren O'Sullivan. Women's Players Player of the Year was Everton's Angharad James. Men's Young Player of the Year, could it be anyone else other than Ben Woodburn?
No. In a word, no. Like I think that he's just, even if this talk of him being English or whatever wasn't there, he would still be doing fantastically well, and it would be going under the radar, because I think the only reason he's being talked about is because he was born in Chester. Chester's basically Wales anyway. I think that it's a bit silly, but yeah, you're right. There's nobody else it could be.
He's come through at just the right time with the tournament coming up.
Oh, yeah.
I spoke before. There's not much competition for the Wales, squad in itself. So
I think Wales' starting 11 is pretty much set in every single game.
That's what I mean.
The only players that I think interchange are Sam Vokes and Hal Robson-Kanu, and that just depends on who they play in and who they decide to bring on as a substitute.
The thing with the Wales setup is that the kind of players they've got now have been playing together for so long. Chris Gunter, who I'm sure we're going to mention in a minute, but we might as well say it now, he won the Men's Player of the Year. He has got 81 caps, 61 of them consecutive games. Like, just what a man. He's just been unbelievable for Wales. But because he's been playing for Wales, I think he made his debut at 18 when he was still playing for Cardiff. And yeah, he's just been one of many players who have just come through and played fantastically well, constantly. And they're a team. They are in the literal sense a team. They're not a squad. They're just friends.
I saw an interview with Gareth Bale this morning saying that the Wales national team are such a tight-knit group that they will literally welcome anyone with open arms, and I think that's great for a national team to have, especially Wales.
I think they... Sorry, Liam.
I think it is, but there's also a fear for the players becoming comfortable in their positions. I mean, a lot of the matches where we haven't played so well, you're just dying for Coleman to bring someone else on, but you think he doesn't want to interrupt the chemistry between them.
We have options now.
Exactly, which is exactly what we need.
And also you could argue that there are some players, I would say, even though he is a Cardiff player, Jazz Richards hasn't really been playing that well for Wales or at club level, but he's still getting constantly called into the team. I think that's the problem, is that when you've got a team like that that's so together, you cannot drop any of them, even if one of them has a poor game. Bale has not been playing well, but he's by far and away Wales' best player.
Which, just one last point on the Ben Woodburn thing. The only thing that keeps me hesitant on being excited about Ben Woodburn's potential is club level. Because I think if Liverpool butcher that kid's potential, then it could be such a waste. I think he needs, I know it's really cliche to say that a young player needs first team football, but I really hope that he does get some games in for Liverpool or somewhere else, at least like going out on loan to someone.
I was disappointed that he didn't go out on loan, and that I think it was transfer deadline day or the day before, Jurgen Klopp came out publicly and said that he didn't still know what he wanted to do with him. Well, that's not good for the player. That's not good for him at all. I would have liked to have seen him come to the Championship, even if it wasn't for Cardiff, and just, maybe a low-level Championship team where he could toughen up a bit, because he is still weak. Young players are, because they're not taught the kind of fitness that the professionals are, or first team are. So I would have liked to have seen him, get battered and bruised a little bit. It would have compromised a bit of pace, but he would have been able to hold the ball.
Certainly not enough just playing well for the Welsh team, is
No,
it?
not
For
at
his
all.
career.
No.
He definitely needs some minutes at club level, I think.
Yeah.
So, moving on from men's young player of the year, is men's players player of the year, who was
Who else?
Gareth Bale.
Of course.
Not much to say about this topic, really. Gareth Bale, world-class player. Couple of injury problems, obviously out injured at the moment. He will miss the is it Georgia and Ireland games. He will miss those this week.
And we'll be sure to talk about that on the day after the game.
Yep, catch that on next week's podcast. We will give a full in-depth review of the Wales-Moldova game, along with the
Wales-Georgia game.
No, it'll be the Ireland game next week.
Next Monday?
Yeah,
Friday they play Georgia, and then
Monday
they
okay.
play Ireland.
So we'll give a roundup of Wales'
show what I know.
two results, given our opinions on those. Obviously, Gareth Bale is out for the both of those, which is quite unfortunate. But
Dreaded international breaks.
I know, I hate international breaks, but still.
I hate them because Cardiff always seem to hit a vein of form before we go into them.
So moving on from men's player of the year, because I think Gareth Bale, we all knew.
You can't argue with what the squad is saying.
Can't argue with that. But what many people were surprised with last night was men's player of the year. You mentioned it earlier, Chris Gunter, ruining Gareth Bale's streak of
4 in a row.
He would have been awarded his 5th, I think.
Yeah.
Men's player of the year, Chris Gunter, becoming Wales's best player of 2016-17.
Good. I think it's good. For
I
the
think
Wales
it's
team.
definitely true. I would have, if I would have thought about it beforehand, if I had to give you a name before the awards that wasn't Gareth Bale, I probably would have told you Joe Allen. But Chris Gunter, I think, is equally worth that, because he's played every single game for Wales. He's never put in a bad shift. He's always up and down that wing, and without him, I don't think we've got a player who can do his job. I just think he's a fantastic player.
And again, going back to the fact of the players potentially being too comfortable. I mean, if you're giving Bale the award year in, year out, when he's maybe not performing at as a higher level as we want him to.
They do need to learn to be less dependent on Bale, because obviously Bale is such a liability at the moment with his injuries.
Yeah.
When the rumours came out last summer that United could possibly sign Bale, I was like, oh, cool. It would be really good as a Welsh United fan for Gareth Bale to move to United, possibly get the number 11 shirt.
For the 20 games a season, he's fit.
Exactly, but the injuries are such a huge problem. You mentioned it. His legs are worth 50 million each in insurance or something like that.
I think it's something like that. It's stupid.
Something stupid. But his injuries have become a problem, because he had a big one around the end of last year or the beginning of 2017, and now he's out again, which is not too dependent. But hopefully the likes of Ben Woodburn can come in and gel with the team, because you've still got the likes of Joe Allen, Aaron Ramsey, you've got Ben Davis coming down the left. He's a quality player.
Neil Taylor,
yeah.
I've always thought, even at Swansea, he was a good player. I don't necessarily think that he's a class, but he does a job for Wales.
There are still creative options in Wales' squad, is basically what we're saying.
Yeah, I don't think that we're gonna look at the results of either game. At least I hope we're not, and say, oh, we would have done well with Bale, or we would have done better with Bale. That's the problem.
I am slightly concerned over the Ireland game, though, because even with Bale at the last Ireland game, we did struggle.
True.
I think the last two games they struggled. With Bale and Ramsey in the team who weren't performing at their best. It forced other players within the team to perform, especially on a creative basis. So if Ramsey's then to step up to the level we expect, or Bale is to raise to that level, then Wales can become a force like they were in the previous tournament.
Yeah, but then kind of going back to Ireland, on their right side, Seamus Coleman can't play. God knows why. I think I might ask Neil Taylor about that. But On the right side, then I think the only other option for them would be Cyrus Christie, who plays for Middlesbrough, and he's a good player in the Championship, but he's not quick, and he likes to push forward. So whoever we put on that left side, hopefully Ben Woodburn, I do think he deserves to start on Friday.
Hands down. Hands down.
I don't think Cyrus Christie will have Woodburn in his back pocket. I think there'll be a lot of space for him to run into.
I mean, that match against Wales against Ireland or Republic of is definitely going on the basis of people presuming that they're both going to win their next game beforehand.
Yeah, that's very true. I forgot about that. Is that you have to win the Georgia match first. Yeah. You have to.
And for them, it's Moldova, isn't it? So 2 games you expect them to win, but if they don't, then it still throws open the last game either way.
I would love Ireland to bottle that.
I think Ireland have got a really decent squad, though.
Moldova gave us a good game, though.
Ireland have got a decent squad when you think of the likes of who they have. The likes of McCarthy from Everton. I think it's James McCarthy, am I right?
Yeah, James McCarthy.
Shane Long is good at an international level. Aidan McGeady, even though he's gone down to Championship level, he brings
he's been
something.
there for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
But I would obviously Seamus Coleman when he's fit, but he's not.
Seamus Coleman when he's fit is one of the best right backs in the league.
Shane Duffy as well. Shane Duffy's a great player. Maybe he's a bit out of his depth in the Premier League, but I thought he was a great Championship player. He's linked with a lot of big Championship clubs before he left Blackburn. Right, so I think that's that wrapped up, isn't it? So
one last topic. We should probably do some predictions over the next week.
Yeah.
We'll start off with international results. What's your predictions for the Wales-Moldova game on Friday?
Wales-Georgia.
Wales-Georgia. Sorry, I said Moldova.
I'm going to go 2-0 Wales for that.
2-0 Wales.
A lot of pressure on the game, I think. But I'd probably say 2-1.
I'm going to agree with Liam. I was thinking 2-1.
I can't see Georgia scoring. But yeah, okay. I
Okay.
can't name a single one of Georgia's players. I don't think that's because of ignorance either.
So, with the Ireland game, which we will obviously provide an in-depth review of on Tuesday, what do you think the score is going to be?
That's going to be a hard one.
Yeah, again, with that game in between.
My heart says that we're going to win. My head says we're going to draw. And I don't know how that would see the table pan out. I think that would mean that we go through.
Yeah, because we are on top at the moment. So providing that we win against Georgia and get a draw against Ireland, I think that's enough.
I'm going to say a 2-2 draw.
I'm going to say a 1-1 draw.
I hate to say it, but I think they'll beat us.
Do you really?
I can see a 1-0.
Well, there we go. On Tuesday, you'll be able to prove us wrong.
It wouldn't surprise me if Ireland would win, but it would be really disappointing.
I highly doubt that we're going to be sitting here on Tuesday and saying whoever wins didn't deserve it. Because I think they're both very equal teams, especially without Bale. They're very equal teams.
But I'd say this is Wales's chance to perform, or to at least get into a World Cup, because in another 4 years, Bale will be 31. He probably won't be anywhere near as where he is now.
He would have lost all of his pace by then, and probably his knees.
That's it for the first episode of the In Off the Post podcast.
Yep, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you all for listening. If you want to keep in contact with us, you can do so via Twitter.
If you want to follow us on Twitter, please do. It's at IOTP blog for the official podcast and blog feed. My Twitter is at DanBevJourno. It's spelt the way it sounds.
My Twitter is at @RDAWS_, at RDAWS_.
That's it. Thank you very much for listening, and we hope to see you next week.